She froze. The stroller handles slipped from her fingers as her vision tunneled, focused on the man standing 10 feet away beneath the cherry blossoms. Minho. His black suit was immaculate as always, but his face, God, his face looked like he'd seen a ghost. Soyeon? His voice cracked on her name. Her heart slammed against her ribcage. 3 years. 3 fucking years since he'd thrown her out like garbage, and now he was here, staring at her like she was the one who disappeared. The twins stirred in the stroller behind her, and she saw the exact moment his eyes dropped to them, saw the color drain from his face. Whose? He stepped forward and she stepped back. Whose children? Not yours. The words came out colder than she intended, colder than the night he'd handed her divorce papers and told her she was useless to him. Barren, he'd called her, incapable of giving him an heir. How old are they? His voice was barely a whisper now, and something in his expression terrified her. Desperation. Raw, unfiltered desperation. That's none of your business. Soyeon, how old? 2.5. She shouldn't have answered, shouldn't have given him anything. But the way he was looking at her, like she held the answers to every question that had been haunting him, everything went silent. The park sounds, children laughing, birds chirping, all faded to nothing as he did the math. She watched him count backward in his head, watched the realization hit him like a physical blow. No. He shook his head. No, you couldn't. The doctors said. The doctors were wrong. Each word felt like swallowing glass. I was 2 months pregnant when you divorced me. His knees buckled, actually buckled. This man, this dangerous, powerful man who'd built an empire on fear and control, grabbed the park bench beside him to stay upright. You knew? His eyes were wide, devastated. You knew you were pregnant and you didn't tell me? She laughed. It was a broken, bitter sound. You'd just thrown me out for being childless, Minho. What the hell was I supposed to do? Come crawling back and beg you to believe me? You made your choice. I need to... He moved toward the stroller again, and she positioned herself between him and her babies. Her hands were shaking, but she stood her ground. You need to leave. Those are my children. Not a question, a statement torn from somewhere deep in his chest. Soyeon, those are my... You lost the right to call them yours the day you chose your empire over our marriage. She grabbed the stroller and walked away, leaving him standing there under the falling cherry blossoms, looking like his entire world had just shattered. Because it had, and she'd be damned if she let him break hers again. 3 years earlier. The club was packed, the bass so heavy Soyeon could feel it in her chest. She shouldn't have come. Midterms were in 2 days and she had a shift at the cafe at 6 in the morning, but her best friend Gina had literally dragged her out of their apartment. You need to live a little, Gina shouted over the music, pressing a drink into her hand. We're 23, not 63. Soyeon laughed, taking a sip of whatever fruity concoction Gina had ordered. The vodka burned pleasantly warm down her throat. I live plenty. I just live responsibly. Responsibly is code for boring. Employed is code for able to pay rent. Gina rolled her eyes, but she was grinning. That's when Soyeon saw him, or rather, felt his gaze. The crowd seemed to part naturally around him, a man in a black button-down with the sleeves rolled up, revealing tattooed forearms. He was sitting in one of the VIP sections that Soyeon knew cost more than her monthly rent, but he wasn't paying attention to any of the beautiful women vying for his attention. He was staring at her. Holy shit, Gina breathed. That's Kang Minho. The name meant nothing to Soyeon. Should I know who that is? He basically owns half of Seoul's nightlife, and possibly some less legal things. Gina grabbed her arm. Do not make eye contact. Men like that are dangerous. But it was too late. He was already standing, already moving through the crowd with a predatory grace that made Soyeon's mouth go dry. People moved out of his way instinctively, and when he stopped in front of her, she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Dark, intense, hungry. Dance with me, he said. Not a question. She should have said no, should have listened to the warning bells going off in her head. Instead, she found herself nodding, found herself letting him lead her onto the dance floor. His hand settled on her lower back, burning through the thin fabric of her dress. And when he pulled her close, she could smell his cologne, something expensive and intoxicating. "I'm Minho," he said against her ear, his breath warm on her neck. "Soyeon." "Soyeon," he repeated, like he was testing how her name felt in his mouth. "You don't belong here." "Excuse me?" He pulled back to look at her, and there was something almost soft in his expression. "This place. These people. You're different. You don't know anything about me. I know you've checked your phone 3 times since you walked in. I know you're drinking something fruity because you don't actually like the taste of alcohol. I know you'd rather be anywhere else, but you're here because you're a good friend." His thumb traced small circles on her back. "Am I wrong?" She swallowed hard. "Are you always this observant?" "Only when something interests me." His eyes dropped to her lips. "And you, Soyeon, interest me very much." That was the beginning. The moment everything changed, they were inseparable after that night. Minho pursued her with an intensity that was both thrilling and terrifying. Flowers showed up at her apartment. Her cafe shifts were interrupted by surprise visits. He took her to restaurants where the waiters knew him by name and the menus had no prices. "This is too much," she'd protested after he'd bought out an entire movie theater so they could watch her favorite film in private. "Nothing's too much for you." But there were things he wouldn't talk about. His business. The men in black who flanked him everywhere. The way people looked at him with a mixture of respect and fear. Soyeon told herself it didn't matter, that whatever he was involved in didn't change how he made her feel. Cherished, protected, alive. 2 months in, she met his family. His father was a cold, calculating man who looked at Soyeon like she was a business acquisition. His mother was elegant and distant, sipping tea with practiced grace while asking Soyeon about her background and family connections. The dinner was excruciating. Afterward, in the car, Minho had gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. "I'm sorry," he said. "It's fine. It's not fine. There..." He exhaled sharply. "My world is complicated, Soyeon. My family has expectations, responsibilities." She'd reached over, lacing her fingers through his. "Then it's a good thing I'm not dating your family." He'd looked at her then with such raw emotion it stole her breath. "I love you." The words hung between them, precious and terrifying. "I love you too," she whispered. That night, he'd made love to her like she was something holy, something he was afraid of breaking, and when she fell asleep in his arms, she'd thought this was forever. She'd been so fucking wrong. Present day. That night. Soyeon's hands were still shaking as she unlocked her apartment door. The twins, Minjun and Minji, were finally asleep, their little faces peaceful in a way that made her chest ache. She set them gently in their cribs, pulling the blankets up to their chins, and then she let herself collapse on the couch. Seeing Minho had ripped open wounds she'd spent 3 years trying to heal. Her phone buzzed. "Unknown number. We need to talk." She threw the phone across the room. It bounced off the cushions harmlessly, buzzing again immediately, and again and again. "Jesus Christ," she muttered, retrieving it. "Please, just 5 minutes. I'll stand on your doorstep all night if I have to. Soyeon, please." She knew him well enough to know he wasn't bluffing. With a string of curses that would have made a sailor blush, she threw on a jacket and headed downstairs. Sure enough, there he was, leaning against a black Mercedes that probably cost more than her entire building. 5 minutes, she said, crossing her arms. "Starting now." He pushed off the car, and God, why did he still have to look at her like that? Like she was the only thing in the world that mattered? "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice was hoarse. "Why didn't you? I had a right to know." "You had a right?" She laughed bitterly. "You divorced me because I couldn't give you children. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Finding out I was pregnant 2 weeks later and knowing that you wouldn't believe me, that you'd think I was lying to get you back?" "I would have believed you." "Bullshit." Soyeon, you looked me in the eyes and told me I was useless, that your family needed an heir, and I couldn't provide one. Your mother stood there and told me I was wasting your time. Her voice cracked. So no, Minho, you didn't have a right to know, because you'd already made it crystal clear that children were the only thing that mattered to you. That's not... He ran a hand through his hair, frustration and pain warring on his features. Fuck, that's not why I divorced you. Then why? She hated how desperate she sounded, hated that after all this time she still wanted answers. Why did you throw away 2 years together? Why did you break my heart and then act like I meant nothing? Because loving you almost got you killed. The words hit her like a physical blow. She staggered back and he caught her elbow, steadying her. What? My enemies. His jaw clenched. They found out about you, found out what you meant to me, and they tried to... He couldn't finish the sentence. I couldn't protect you and keep you close, so I had to let you go. Soyeon's mind was reeling. You're lying. I wish I was. He pulled out his phone, showing her photos that made her stomach turn, photos of herself, at the cafe, walking home from class, entering her apartment, all taken without her knowledge, all dated from 3 years ago. They were watching you, planning to take you to get to me, so I made them think you meant nothing, made everyone think I'd thrown you away like garbage. His voice broke. It killed me, Soyeon, every single day, but you were safe, and that was all that mattered. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. You could have told me. We could have figured something out. There was nothing to figure out. As long as you were connected to me, you were a target. He stepped closer. But now, God, Soyeon, now I find out I have children, and I can't walk away again, even if I should. Minho, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not even asking you to let me back into your life. His eyes were shining with unshed tears. But those children are mine, and I will protect them with everything I have, even if it means protecting them from me. Before she could respond, he was gone, sliding into his Mercedes and disappearing into the night, leaving Soyeon standing on the sidewalk with her entire understanding of the past 3 years shattered around her feet. 2 days later, he said what? Gina nearly spit out her coffee. They were at their favorite cafe, not the one Soyeon used to work at, thank God. The twins were with Soyeon's mother for the afternoon, which meant she could actually have a conversation without being interrupted by demands for juice or cartoons. He said he divorced me to protect me. Soyeon stirred her latte mechanically. That his enemies were going to use me against him. And you believe him? I saw the photos, Gina. Someone was stalking me. I had no idea. She shuddered. What if they'd gone after the twins? What if... Gina reached across the table, gripping her hand. But they didn't. You're safe. The babies are safe. And maybe, he's telling the truth. Or maybe he's manipulating me. The Minho I remember worshipped the ground you walked on. He looked at you like you hung the fucking moon. Gina leaned back. Men like that don't just fake emotions that intense. Soyeon wanted to believe that. God, she wanted to believe that the past 3 years of pain had been for a reason, that he'd actually loved her enough to let her go. Her phone buzzed, a text from another unknown number, but she knew who it was. There's a car outside, black sedan. Driver's name is Junho. He'll take you anywhere you need to go, no strings attached. Just... let me keep you safe, please. She looked out the window. Sure enough, a black sedan was parked across the street, a man in a suit standing beside it with his hands folded professionally in front of him. Is that? Gina followed her gaze. Oh my God, he got you a bodyguard. Apparently. Soyeon, that's either really romantic or really creepy. I can't decide which. Join the club, Soyeon muttered. But as much as she wanted to be angry, wanted to tell him to back off, she couldn't deny the small flicker of warmth in her chest. He was trying to protect her, just like he claimed he'd been doing all along. Against her better judgment, she texted back, "Thank you." The response was immediate. Anything for you. Always. Gina was watching her with knowing eyes. You still love him. I hate him. You can do both. Gina flagged down the waiter for more coffee. Trust me, I'm Korean. Our dramas taught me that loving and hating someone are basically the same emotion with different packaging. Despite everything, Soyeon laughed, but the sound died in her throat when she looked out the window again and saw a different man watching her. Not Junho. Someone else. Someone whose gaze made her skin crawl. She grabbed Gina's arm. We need to go. Now. What? Why, now, Gina. Her friend must have heard the panic in her voice because she didn't argue. They threw money on the table and headed for the door, but the man was already moving, cutting across the street with purpose. Soyeon's heart hammered. She pulled out her phone, dialing the last number that had texted her. Minho answered on the first ring. Someone's following me, she said without preamble. Where are you? Milano Cafe on 3rd Street. There's a man. Get to Junho right now. She didn't question it. They ran to the sedan and Junho immediately opened the door, ushering them inside before sliding into the driver's seat and pulling into traffic. Who is that? Gina's eyes were wide. I don't know, but... Her phone rang. Minho again. Are you safe? Yes, we're in the car. She heard him exhale shakily. I'm coming to you. Stay with Junho. Minho, what's happening? Someone knows about the twins. His voice was tight with barely controlled rage. Someone knows they're mine. I'm handling it, but until I do, you need to stay close to protection. Do you understand? This is exactly what I didn't want. Her voice rose. This is why I stayed away from you. I don't want my children in danger because of your world. Then you shouldn't have had my children. He shouted it, and then there was silence. Heavy, terrible silence. Fuck, Soyeon, I didn't mean... She hung up. Gina squeezed her hand. Breathe. Just breathe. But she couldn't. Because Minho was right. She'd brought 2 innocent babies into a world that was hunting them, and it was all because of choices she'd made 3 years ago. Choices she couldn't take back. That evening, Minho's penthouse Junho had driven them to Minho's place despite Soyeon's protests. Boss's orders, he'd said apologetically. Now she was standing in the living room of a penthouse that probably cost more than she'd earn in 10 lifetimes, watching Minho pace like a caged tiger. Gina had her phone out, clearly texting someone. Is it cool if my boyfriend comes? Because this is getting intense and I need backup. You have a boyfriend? Soyeon blinked. Since when? Since 3 months ago. His name is Taehyung. He's a doctor. And before you judge me for not telling you, you've been busy with the twins, and I didn't want to add to your stress. Gina's phone buzzed. He's on his way. Minho stopped pacing long enough to look at them. This penthouse is secure. No one gets in without my permission. You'll stay here tonight. Like hell. Soyeon. He crossed to her, and she hated how her body responded to his proximity. Hated how she still wanted to lean into him. Please, just for tonight, let me keep you safe. The twins are with your mother. I've already sent men to watch her apartment. They're safe. You what? Anger flared hot in her chest. You can't just... I can, and I did. His eyes flashed. Those are my children too, whether you like it or not. And I will not lose them because I was too proud or too stupid to do what needed to be done. They stared at each other, the air crackling with tension and unresolved feelings and 3 years of pain. I hate you, she whispered. I know. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face with devastating gentleness. I hate me too. The doorbell rang, shattering the moment. Minho pulled away and Soyeon felt the loss of his warmth like a physical ache. A man walked in, tall, handsome, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Taehyung, presumably. He went straight to Gina, pulling her into a hug that spoke of genuine affection. You okay? He murmured into her hair. Yeah, just some Mafia drama, the usual. Gina was trying to sound light, but her hands were shaking. Taehyung looked at Minho. Need me to check anyone for injuries? Not yet. Minho's voice was grim. but possibly soon. Comforting, Soyeon muttered. The next few hours were surreal. Minho made phone calls in rapid Korean, his voice sharp and commanding. Taehyung ordered food delivery. Apparently being friends with a Mafia boss meant you got restaurant-quality meals at 10 p.m. Gina tried to keep the mood light, but tension hung over everything like a storm cloud. It was after midnight when Soyeon found Minho on the balcony, staring out at the Seoul skyline. She'd meant to go to bed, to put distance between them, but her feet carried her outside before she could stop them. "Can't sleep?" he asked without turning around. Too much adrenaline. She leaned against the railing beside him. "Did you find out who was following me?" "Yes." And he won't be following anyone anymore. The coldness in his voice sent a shiver down her spine. This was the man people feared, the man who'd built an empire on ruthlessness and blood. Minho. He was sent by the Lee family, rivals of mine. He finally looked at her. They wanted leverage, and children, my children, are the ultimate leverage. This is insane. This whole world is insane. She wrapped her arms around herself. I can't raise Minjun and Minji like this. I can't have them looking over their shoulders their entire lives. Then marry me. The words hung in the air between them, impossible and perfect and terrifying. What? He turned to face her fully. Marry me. Again. Let me make you my wife officially, publicly. Let everyone know that you and our children are under my protection. It's the only way to keep you truly safe. You're out of your mind. I'm practical. He stepped closer. You want stability for the twins? A life where they don't have to hide? This is it. As my wife, as my recognized heirs, they become untouchable. And what about love? Her voice cracked. What about the fact that you destroyed me 3 years ago? What about... I never stopped loving you. The confession was raw, torn from somewhere deep in his chest. Not for a single fucking day, Soyeon. Divorcing you was the hardest thing I've ever done. And finding out about the twins. His voice broke. I missed 2.5 years of their lives. I'll never forgive myself for that. But I can't. I won't miss anymore. Tears were streaming down her face now. You hurt me. I know. You made me feel worthless. I know. I don't know if I can trust you again. He reached up, cupping her face with both hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears. Then let me earn it. Let me spend every day for the rest of my life proving that you and our children are everything to me. Let me... His own eyes were wet now. Let me be the man you deserved all along. She shouldn't kiss him, shouldn't let herself fall back into this. But when his lips met hers, it felt like coming home, like 3 years of pain and loneliness were washing away in a single, desperate connection. They broke apart, both breathing hard. This doesn't mean I forgive you, she whispered against his mouth. I don't deserve forgiveness. He kissed her again, softer this time. But I'll take whatever you'll give me. From inside, Gina's voice called out, Are you two done having your dramatic balcony moment? Because Taehyung and I are trying to sleep, and the sexual tension is palpable even through the walls. Despite everything, Soyeon laughed. Minho smiled, a real, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. She's not wrong about the sexual tension, he murmured. Down, boy. But she was smiling too. You have a lot of groveling to do before we get to that stage. I'm an excellent groveler. We'll see. 1 week later, Soyeon had agreed to stay at the penthouse temporarily, which apparently meant Minho had child-proofed the entire place, bought enough toys to stock a daycare, and hired a full-time nanny who looked like she could double as a bodyguard. The twins had taken to him instantly, which was both heartwarming and terrifying. Appa! Minjun toddled over to Minho, holding up a toy truck. Her son, their son, had started calling Minho Daddy after exactly 3 days. Minho scooped him up, and the look on his face made Soyeon's chest tight. Pure, unfiltered love. You want to show me your truck? Is it fast? Fast, Minjun agreed enthusiastically. Minji was more reserved, watching Minho with curious eyes from her spot on the carpet. But slowly, over the week, she'd warmed up to him. Now she let him read her bedtime stories, her small hand clasped in his massive one. He's good with them, Gina observed. She was sprawled on the couch, Taehyung beside her with his arm around her shoulders. They'd become regulars at the penthouse, and Soyeon was grateful for the buffer their presence provided. Too good, Soyeon muttered. It's going to break their hearts if this doesn't work out. It'll work out. Taehyung adjusted his glasses. I've seen the way he looks at you. That's not a man who's going to screw this up twice. You barely know him. I know people. It's kind of my job. He smiled. And Minho is many things. Dangerous, ruthless, morally questionable. But he's not a liar. Not about this. Soyeon wanted to believe that. Wanted to trust that this fragile piece they'd built could last. But fear kept her guarded. Kept her from fully surrendering to the hope blooming in her chest. That night, after the twins were asleep, Minho found her in the kitchen making tea. We need to talk about the wedding, he said. She nearly dropped the kettle. I never said yes to marrying you. You didn't say no. Absence of a no is not a yes, Minho. That's like consent 101. He had the grace to look sheepish. You're right, I'm sorry. He sat at the kitchen island, and God, he looked tired. I'm not good at this. At asking instead of commanding. At being vulnerable instead of controlled. She poured 2 cups of tea, sliding one across to him. Then learn. Will you marry me? He met her eyes. Not because it's practical, not because it'll protect the twins, but because I love you. Because I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. Because I want to be there for every milestone, every scraped knee, every parent-teacher conference. Because you're it for me, Soyeon. You always have been. Her hands trembled around her mug. I need time. Take all the time you need. He reached across, linking his pinky with hers in a gesture so sweet it made her want to cry. I'm not going anywhere. 2 weeks later, hospital. It happened fast. Too fast. One moment, Soyeon was buckling Minji into her car seat, and the next, tires were squealing and men were shouting. She'd screamed, throwing herself over the twins as gunfire erupted around her. Then Minho was there. She didn't know how, didn't know where he'd come from, putting himself between her and the bullets. Blood bloomed across his shoulder, and she watched in horror as he went down. But not before taking out 3 men with deadly precision. Junho and other guards swarmed the scene. Someone was calling for an ambulance. Minjun and Minji were crying, terrified, and Soyeon gathered them close while pressing her jacket against Minho's wound. You idiot, she sobbed. You fucking idiot, why did you— Not losing you again, he gritted out through the pain. Not ever. At the hospital, Taehyung met them in the ER, immediately taking charge of Minho's care. Gina appeared minutes later, gathering the twins and taking them to a private room where they'd be safe and distracted. Soyeon sat in the waiting room, Minho's blood still on her hands, and let herself completely break down. He'd taken a bullet for her, for their children, almost died protecting them, and she finally understood that he'd been telling the truth all along. About loving her, about letting her go to keep her safe, about everything. Mrs. Kang, a nurse appeared. He's out of surgery. He's asking for you. She wasn't Mrs. Kang, not anymore, but she followed the nurse anyway, her heart in her throat. Minho looked pale against the white hospital sheets, an IV in his arm and bandages wrapped around his shoulder. But when he saw her, his entire face softened. Twins? Safe. Gina has them. She sat in the chair beside his bed, taking his uninjured hand. You almost died. But I didn't. You could have. Her voice broke. You can't do that to me. You can't make me fall in love with you again and then get yourself killed. His thumb stroked across her knuckles. Again? What? You said fall in love with you again. Present tense. Not past. His smile was soft, hopeful. Does that mean... It means I'm an idiot who can't help loving you even when you're being a self-sacrificing martyr. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. It means I'm tired of fighting this, of pretending I don't still want you. Soyeon, yes, he blinked. Yes what? Yes, I'll marry you. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his. Yes to everything. To being a family. To trusting you. To... She kissed him gently, carefully, mindful of his injuries. To loving you the way you deserve to be loved. When she pulled back, there were tears streaming down his face. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. He laughed, then winced as the movement pulled at his stitches. Best thing that's ever happened to me. Getting stuck with you. The door burst open and Gina appeared, twins in tow. We heard shouting and, oh. She took in the scene. Are you two finally done being dramatic? Yama! Minji wriggled free, running to Soyeon. Minjun followed, and suddenly they were all on the hospital bed. Carefully, so carefully, with Minho's good arm wrapped around all three of them. My family, he murmured, pressing a kiss to Soyeon's temple. My whole world. From the doorway, Taehyung had appeared with Gina. Should we leave? No, Soyeon said. Stay. Your family, too. Gina pretended to wipe away a tear. Did she just call us family? Tae? She called us family. I heard it. He was grinning. Does this mean we're stuck with the Mafia drama now? Forever, Minho confirmed. Welcome to the family. 3 months later, wedding day. The ceremony was small, private, just their closest friends, and Minho's most trusted people. His parents had tried to insist on a large public affair, but Minho had shut that down immediately. This is for us, he'd told them firmly, not for business, not for appearances. If you can't respect that, you're not welcome. They'd come anyway, and Soyeon had watched them meet their grandchildren for the first time, watched Minho's mother's carefully controlled expression crack when Minji had offered her a crayon drawing, watched his father's eyes soften when Minjun had called him Harabioji. Maybe they weren't so terrible after all, or maybe they were just smart enough to realize what Minho would do if they heard his family again. Now Soyeon stood in a simple white dress, holding hands with the man she'd loved, lost, and found again, listening to him recite vows he'd written himself. I can't promise I'll always make the right choice, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. I can't promise my world won't be dangerous or complicated, but I can promise that from this moment forward, you will always know where you stand with me. You will never doubt my love. You will never question your worth. He squeezed her hands. You and our children are everything, and I will spend every day proving that to you. Soyeon's own vows were simpler. I choose you. I choose us. I choose love over fear, trust over pain, hope over doubt. You broke my heart once, but somehow you also healed it, and I can't wait to see what forever looks like with you. When they kissed, the small crowd erupted in applause. Minjun and Minji, dressed in matching formal outfits, clapped along even though they didn't really understand what was happening. The reception was held at the penthouse, transformed into something magical with lights and flowers and enough food to feed an army. Taehyung gave a toast that was equal parts heartfelt and hilarious, making jokes about prescribing married life and diagnosing love. Gina followed with her own speech. I've known Soyeon since we were 18. I've watched her struggle through school, work 3 jobs, build a life for her children as a single mother, and I've never seen her as happy as she is right now. She raised her glass. To Minho, you better not fuck this up. To Soyeon, you deserve every happiness. And to the twins, welcome to having a dad who's slightly terrifying, but absolutely devoted. Everyone drank to that. Later, when the party had wound down and the twins were asleep in their room, Minho pulled Soyeon onto the balcony where he'd proposed all those weeks ago. Mrs. Kang, he murmured against her ear. How does it feel? Terrifying. she admitted. Perfect, right. All of the above? All of the above. They stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the city lights twinkle below. Inside, Gina was laughing at something Taehyung said. Junho and the other guards were cleaning up with surprising domesticity. The twins slept peacefully, safe and loved. Thank you, Minho whispered. For what? For giving me another chance, for letting me be their father, for... His voice caught. For being strong enough to survive when I was too weak to stay. She turned in his arms, cupping his face. We're both stronger now. Together. Together, he agreed. And when he kissed her, it tasted like promises kept and futures built, and love that had survived everything thrown at it. 6 months later. Epilogue. Minjun, don't eat that. Soyeon lunged across the living room, extracting what looked like a crayon from her son's mouth. He pouted but didn't fight her, used to his mother's constant vigilance. He's testing boundaries, Gina observed from her spot on the couch. She was noticeably rounder now, 4 months pregnant with her and Taehyung's first child. It's developmentally appropriate. It's developmentally annoying, Soyeon muttered, but she was smiling. Minji was in the corner, carefully arranging her toy kitchen, a look of intense concentration on her face that reminded Soyeon so much of Minho it hurt. Speaking of whom... The door opened and her husband walked in, immediately surrounded by toddlers demanding his attention. Appa, Appa, I made food! Minji held up a plastic egg. The best food, Minho declared seriously, pretending to eat it. Delicious. Minjun climbed up his leg like a monkey. Park, park! Later, buddy. Appa just got home from work. But he was already scooping him up, tossing him gently in the air while Minjun shrieked with laughter. Taehyung arrived minutes later with takeout. I come bearing gifts of fried chicken and beer. My hero, Gina declared, making grabby hands. They ate together, the 6 of them, soon to be 7, crowded around the dining table. The twins made a mess, as always. Gina and Taehyung bickered affectionately about baby names. Minho held Soyeon's hand under the table, his thumb tracing familiar patterns on her skin. This was her life now, chaotic, loud, messy, perfect. After dinner, after baths and bedtime stories, and finally getting the twins to sleep, Soyeon found Minho in their bedroom, looking at his phone with a frown. Work stuff? Nothing I can't handle tomorrow. He set the phone aside, pulling her into his arms. How are you feeling? Tired, happy, wondering how Gina's going to handle pregnancy when she can barely handle spicy food. She snuggled into his chest. Why? Because you've been looking at baby clothes online. She froze. How do you... I may have noticed the shopping cart on your laptop. His hand slid to her stomach. Is there something you want to tell me? Her heart was racing. They hadn't been trying, but they hadn't been preventing either, and her period was late, and she'd been exhausted lately, and... I haven't taken a test yet, she admitted. I was scared, after everything with the twins, finding out alone. Her voice cracked. I didn't want to do that again. Hey, he tipped her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. You're not alone. Not anymore. Not ever. His smile was gentle. Do you want to take a test now? Together? She nodded, not trusting her voice. 10 minutes later, they sat on the bathroom floor, watching 3 minutes tick by on the timer. Minho held her hand, his grip steady and reassuring. When the timer went off, Soyeon couldn't look. You check. He picked up the test, went completely still. Minho. When he looked at her, tears were streaming down his face. It's positive. Soyeon, we're... She burst into tears, and then they were both crying, holding each other on the bathroom floor like idiots, laughing through their tears. I get to be there this time, he choked out. From the beginning, I get to... He couldn't finish, just pulled her closer, pressing kisses to her hair, her face, her lips. We're having a baby, she whispered. We're having a baby, he repeated, awestruck. From the hallway, a small voice called out, Yama, why crying? Minji stood in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit, looking concerned. Minjun appeared behind her, rubbing his eyes sleepily. "Happy tears, baby," Soyeon managed. "Come here." They gathered their family, their beautiful, chaotic, perfect family, right there on the bathroom floor. The twins climbed into their laps, confused but willing to cuddle. Minho's arms wrapped around all of them, and Soyeon felt her heart expand so much she thought it might burst. "Guess what?" Minho said to the twins. "You're going to be big siblings." Minjun looked confused. Minji perked up. "Baby?" "That's right, a baby." "I help?" Minji asked hopefully. "You'll be the best helper," Soyeon promised. They stayed like that for a long time, tangled together on the tile floor. It wasn't comfortable, it wasn't practical, but it was perfect. Later, after getting the twins back to bed, Minho and Soyeon stood on their balcony, looking out at Seoul. 3 years ago, Soyeon mused, if someone had told me we'd end up here, I would have called them crazy. 3 years ago, I was convinced I'd lost you forever. He pulled her back against his chest. And now I have everything I've ever wanted. We still have problems. Your world is still dangerous. We're going to face challenges. And we'll face them together. He turned her in his arms. I'm not saying it'll be easy, but I am saying it'll be worth it. You, me, the twins, this new baby, we're worth every obstacle, every challenge, every moment of fear. She kissed him, slow and deep and full of promise. To new beginnings, she murmured against his lips. To forever, he corrected. And standing there under the stars, surrounded by the city that had witnessed their love story, messy and complicated and beautiful, Soyeon finally let herself believe in happy endings. Because this wasn't the end, it was just the beginning.